Deep in the Hudson Valley of New York, hidden behind miles of iron fencing and ancient oak trees, sat the St. Jude Academy. It was a prestigious private boarding school where the sons of the global elite were sent to be groomed for power. The academy was run by Headmaster Sterling, a man whose lineage went back to the founding fathers and whose arrogance was unmatched. Underneath the veneer of ivy-covered walls and expensive tuition, a dark secret thrived. The school was a clearinghouse for illegal data and high-stakes blackmail. Into this world of extreme privilege walked a woman named Maggie. She was 58 years old, wore a shapeless gray uniform, and spent her 12-hour shifts in the steaming, windowless kitchen of the school's grand dining hall. She was the kitchen rat, a woman who spent her days scrubbing burnt grease off massive iron pots and mopping floors that the students intentionally dirted. To Headmaster Sterling and his chief of security, a former mercenary named Drake, Maggie was less than human. She was a biological machine that cleaned up their messes. Drake took a particular interest in humiliating her. He would often walk into the kitchen after a training session and wipe his muddy boots on her clean apron, laughing while he told the young students that people like Maggie were the biological waste of a successful society. He once threw a bowl of boiling hot soup on the floor, forcing her to clean it up while he stepped on her fingers, mocking her for being a useless old hag who would die forgotten in a basement. Maggie never looked up, never spoke back, and never showed a hint of anger. She simply cleaned, her eyes dull and fixed on the dirty water in her bucket. However, the kitchen rat was a masterpiece of infiltration. Maggie was actually Major Margaret Wraith Callahan, a retired Delta Force operator and a legendary deep-cover specialist for the CIA's Special Activities Center. She had dismantled terror cells in Eastern Europe and ghosted through the most high-security bunkers in the world. She wasn't at St. Jude's for the minimum wage. She was there because a high-ranking senator's son had disappeared from the campus after discovering a massive human trafficking ring operated by Sterling and his international donors. For 5 months, Maggie had lived in a tiny room, playing the role of the broken grandmother, while her cleaning supplies were actually high-powered signal interceptors and micro-explosives. She had mapped the Academy's ancient tunnel system and identified the exact biometric frequencies of the headmaster's private vault. While she was scrubbing the vents in the executive wing, she was actually installing a bypass that would allow her to seize control of the entire campus's digital infrastructure. The situation turned lethal on a cold November night when a young scholarship student named Leo accidentally witnessed Drake moving a group of unconscious teenagers into a hidden cellar beneath the library. Drake caught the boy and brought him to the kitchen, intending to make an example of him in front of the staff. Sterling ordered Drake to silence the witness. Maggie was in the corner, emptying the industrial trash bins. Drake saw her and decided to have some fun. He pulled a heavy tactical knife and handed it to Maggie, telling her that if she wanted to keep her job and her life, she had to cut the boy. He laughed, telling Sterling that the old lady probably didn't even know which end of the knife to hold. Maggie stood there, the heavy trash bag in one hand and the knife in the other. Then she let the bag drop. Her posture shifted. Instantly, her shoulders squaring and her eyes turning into shards of cold, lethal steel. She looked Drake in the face and told him, in a voice that sounded like a command from the depths of hell, that the kitchen was closed. Before Drake could even process the change in her voice, Maggie moved with the explosive speed of a Tier 1 operator. She didn't use the knife on the boy. She used it to disarm Drake in a single, fluid motion, driving the handle into his throat and shattering his windpipe before he could even reach for his sidearm. The kitchen rat was gone, replaced by the Wraith. She pulled a microtransmitter from her ear and spoke a single word: Eclipse. Instantly, the entire billion-dollar campus was plunged into a total blackout. The electronic locks on the gates jammed shut, and the high-tech security cameras were looped with footage of an empty hallway. Maggie reached into a false bottom in her cleaning cart and pulled out a suppressed submachine gun and night vision goggles. She moved through the darkness of the academy like a phantom, using the very shadows she had cleaned for months to dismantle Drake's private security force. She used the industrial kitchen chemicals to create localized smoke screens and her own specialized combat skills to neutralize the mercenaries in the dark. The guards were screaming into their radios, claiming they were under attack by a full tactical team, never realizing it was the woman they had spent months mocking. By the time the emergency lights flickered on, the elite security team was neutralized. Maggie reached the headmaster's office just as Sterling was attempting to burn the evidence of his trafficking ring. She didn't fire a shot. She had already remotely uploaded every file, every bank account, and every video of the trafficking operations to the Department of Justice and the global media. Sterling tried to beg for his life, offering her millions of dollars and a seat at his table. Maggie simply looked at him with the cold indifference of a reaper. She told him that the biological waste he had mocked was finally taking out the trash. She triggered a remote lock on the room and stood back as the sound of Black Hawk helicopters filled the night air. A team of Army Rangers and FBI agents breached the campus, finding Sterling and his associates tied up in the very basement where they had hidden their victims. As the sun began to rise over the Hudson Valley, the dishwasher was nowhere to be found. Leo, the scholarship student, was safe and being reunited with his family, but the woman who had saved his life had vanished. Maggie had already changed into a plain leather jacket and jeans, driving a nondescript sedan toward the state line. She had a new identity, a new mission, and a new target already in her sights. To the world, she would always be a nobody, just another face in the crowd. But as long as the powerful and corrupt thought they could treat the forgotten people of the world like trash, Margaret Wraith Callahan would be there, waiting in the shadows with a mop in one hand and a weapon in the other. If you enjoyed this story of justice and hidden power, hit that subscribe button to join our community and never miss a mission. We bring you the best underestimated hero stories every week. Thanks for watching.